Are you kidding me?
The fans came out for this one, and yes, there were plenty in purple. A fine fall day gave way to a faulty fourth quarter for the home team.
You're on top of the world one week, and then you feel like everything's crashing down you the next.
The win streak is over.
To be honest, I thought we could win.
And the undefeated Eagles are next.
We have a tough one on Monday, and I think we'll be ready for it.
But not before this week's Tony McGee's Pro Football Plus.
The man is back, y'all. We're back. Call your mama, call your daddy. We're back, and we're back. We're back. Tony McGee's back, y'all. We're back. Tony McGee. Come on. Tony McGee, Pro Football Plus. Tony McGee, Pro Football Plus. Tony McGee, Pro Football Plus. Tony McGee.
Welcome to Tony McGee's Pro Football Plus. This is our Geico superstar. You can call it a Hall of Fame show. We're bringing in some Hall of Famers. But what we have to say in the show is what's up. You know what's up? The defense is starting to play for Washington. But as usual, the offense is suspect. When we come back, we're going to bring two of the best linemen of their era. Because usually your offense and defense is predicated on what your lines are doing. We'll be back in a moment to explain that to you.
What's up?
Welcome back. Welcome back to the show that we've been waiting. We have a young man coming in, but let me tell you the first guest we got on here. We got a young man that I played next to for a long time. Matter of fact, I still got a lot of bruises from him getting knocked into me when he's getting knocked off the line. But I'm just playing. This guy was one of the great players we had on our team. He was a nose guard. At 6'2" and weighing maybe 240 pounds, he had 99 tackles one year. He coached in the NFL for 27 years. He's one of my best friends. Let's welcome Ray Sugar Bear Hamilton to the show. What's up, Sugar?
Thank you for inviting me, brother.
Now, fans, we're going to have these Hall of Fame shows 2 weeks in a row. We're waiting for a young man to get on. You probably remember his name. His name is Joe Green. But what do? We got the best defensive lineman of his era, and now we're talking about the best offensive lineman. We're talking about how good the Commanders are, and it's usually predicated on how good their line is. So what do? When he was in the game, he was the best offensive guard I had ever played. I watched him work, I watched him grow, and I love knowing him now. Welcome, John Hog Hanna, to the show. What's happening, Hog?
No, not much. Just trying to feed cows most of the days.
Well, you whoop Ray, now you feeding cows, or did Ray whoop you? Uh-oh, we got one going.
little bit of both.
Little bit of both. Also, we had to bring back the big fella. They call him Treetop Lover. They call him the 6'7" giant. But he know his stuff. You're talking about a man got the same last name as me, Big Solomon McGee. Welcome to the show.
Appreciate you, Pops.
Okay, now I waited to the end because Donna Hopkins was in, and we wanted to make sure she got her say in and everything. And Donna Hopkins has been working on this show for 20-some years. And Donna, we have an array of people here, so we got to get at it. But I had to wait to the end to bring the ratings in.
Why?
All the receivers are doing well, and that's because they only had a chance to say hello to Gary Clark, so they start playing better. He should be in the Hall of Fame. 699 catches.
What's up, guys?
Welcome back to the show, man. Let's get started on this. As you take a look at that game on Sunday, they played pretty well, but there's always something to hold them back. And I'll jump on since we got John here. One thing that I saw in that game, Johnny, and you may not even watch it, but I want to ask you about the offensive lineman of the day. And I'm looking at Washington's linemen, and you've probably seen them change and everything. But it seems as though the offensive linemen are not like you guys were back in the day. They don't knock people off the ball like you guys used to, and they can't be versatile where they can knock them off and run. Is that what you see with our linemen with the Washington team as well as around the league?
I'll be honest with you. I don't even watch pro ball, Tony. I don't watch it at all.
Is that bad?
It's that bad. It's, the line play's gone. And that's what I like to watch. I typically, I watch a game the same way we studied film. I mean, I watch a game, I watch the line, and then, I look what they're doing, and then I know what's going to happen in the backfield and look from there. So, when I look at the line now, especially these offensive linemen, they're all flat-footed, and it's like a bunch of sumo wrestlers out there. So I just don't care to watch it. And the trouble is now Alabama's offensive line looks the same way. So now
so that double jeopardy
I don't even go to watch Alabama play anymore. It's awful.
Right. And you take a look at it though, and we got one thing that we can look at, and I'll talk to the defensive lineman now. Ray, you've heard a lot about them. You coached in the NFL a lot of times. You heard these boys out here, #1 draft choices out of Alabama. They're playing better. They're really playing well now. Do you see these guys, are they as dominant as the players we used to play with, such as yourself and Joe Green?
No, these guys, this is a different kind of guy now. Some of the guys in the middle, Tennessee's got a couple of pretty good players in the middle. Yep. Got a guy in the middle that's pretty tough. Of course, Aaron Donald, he's a small guy. He's a dynamo. He's a guy that's definitely dominant guy. And then the guy Charles Jones from Kansas City. Those are two best guys out there. But a lot of guys come in are not dominant, except for a couple of them just like those guys, Aaron Donald and that bunch.
Well, what, looking at dominance, and I have to go to you at ratings right quick, because one thing about it, each and every week, these receivers, another one stands up, but they all are playing really well, and they seem to be a group that's somewhat similar to what you guys used to be, the standard and the posse. Do you see that with these Washington receivers?
Yeah, I really do. I said it last week. I really like the receivers that we have. They come out, they play hard. Terry McLaurin, he's a beast. I mean, he's a leader on that team offensively, and definitely the head hog when it comes to receivers on that football team. And, I look for more opportunities. It's just a matter of but everything, like you guys say, it flows through the line of scrimmage. At the end of the day, offense and defensive line, they control how good a receiver is going to be or how bad a receiver is going to be. Quite honest, because if the quarterback doesn't have time to throw, the receiver's never going to be heard of. Quarterback has enough time to throw, and he's a good quarterback, then the receivers can look like a superstar. It can be a Pro Bowl player, it can be an All-Pro player. But it really does depend on the line, because those guys are the most important part of the football game.
Hey, big fella, you saw the game, and as you look at it, and you've seen the improvement. You've watched them, and you've seen the non-improvement. What did you see in that game on Sunday when you talk about our offensive and defensive lines?
Well, first of all, got to start with the offensive line. Heineke was running for his life still. They had a couple good protection packages, but at the end of the day, he had to scramble to get out of a lot of trouble, which got him into trouble a couple of times. Defensive line, they were dominating. I would have liked a little bit more pressure, but at the end of the day, to be able to, I think Allen had a sack. I want to say Montez had like 3 pressures. Payne was doing his normal. So I really like how the defense is holding it down, but that's the whole thing is they get tired because this isn't a relationship where the offense is doing their part, where the defense is out there for a long time and then they look up and then they're back out there again. So, but for overall, I give the defense an A. Offensive line, the fact that if it would have been Wentz back there, it would have been 7 sacks.
Hey, Solomon, you were being too nice. I'm going to jump in here before Tony even called on me, because you were being too nice. Because when you look at this offense, it's a debacle. You got to look at Scott Turner also as far as the play calling, because I wrote down about 4 key plays during that whole game. And the defense, I can't say anything bad about them because they held up their end of this. They only had 7 points they allowed until the third quarter. And then the offense, you putting up 17 points. That's how much you're averaging for this, in these 5 weeks or whatever on offense. And that's not going to win games for you. And although we want to love Heineke and what he's done, and as far as they've got all the tools, they've got a running game, they've got the wide receivers, but they don't have the offensive line that's going to be able to help this team move forward. So therefore, Scott Turner, as the offensive coordinator, has to be savvy in his play calling. He knows what he has with the offensive line. He knows what he has with the quarterback, and he's not playing to the strength of these two entities. And I'm not for sure if it's a lot of strength, but he knows what he has in Taylor Heineke, and they've got to be able to scheme in order to give them a chance, because his offensive line is not good as far as pass blocking, and the defense is doing everything they possibly can. And we haven't mentioned the special teams that has been solid as far as their coverage on both punts and kickoffs. Well, their return man, maybe not, but I think that if you look at the blame on this game, it has to go to the coaches.
And you look at that, and one thing you always say, and the one thing they seem to always do once they have a big play, then they come back with a trick play and end up in the hole. What I'm looking at with this team is we have seen improvement, but they still make the crucial mistakes. Donna, when you talk to them, do they ever mention that? It seems as though in the fourth quarter, you can't throw an interception. You can't rough another player when you're trying to win a 3-point game.
Yeah, Tony, but I'm going to let you go to the locker room and hear what the players have to say, and they'll be able to clean up as far as this game and then facing the Philadelphia Eagles coming up.
No, you look at that, I think we had a lot of opportunities to try to finish the game. I think that's the most frustrating thing. I think defense did a great job of putting us in a position to be successful. In offense, we did do a good job of moving the ball at times, but towards the end of the game when I think we were up and we had the ball in our hands, and we just didn't quite get it done. I mean, even if you drive it down, get points, or milk the clock a little bit, give the defense a little bit of rest, I mean, all those things are factors. But at the end of the day, you got to give credit to them as well. They did a good job of getting us off the field and putting their team in a situation to be successful.
In this locker room, how we felt about who we are as a team, and I think we were good enough to get it done today. We just made one too many mistakes. Measuring stick maybe, but we knew we were good enough to compete with that.
Great shot. I ain't gonna lie, he wasn't supposed to throw that, but we made it work. But the safety was playing back, But I think that's just the trust that he had in me. So I appreciate loss.
Tough loss at the end of the game right there. They executed and we didn't. So we go back and correct what we did. We did some good things, we did some bad things, corrected, and come hard from
first series. And instead of just tanking it and be like, oh my God, so I gave up some plays, and I came back and made some plays too, to let him know that I'm a good player too. He's a good player too. It's gonna be a dogfight. Right. I'm gonna check the tape tomorrow, see what I can do better to not get a flag on that play. It definitely hurts. I was about to get my first interception and for 6. So.
And Tony, you know what? That Curtis Samuel's touchdown that the official helped them out, blocked it a little bit. If they don't get that, they don't even not even in the conversation of this game. So it's almost like the key mistakes. Heineke turnover, interception, and his was bad. And you haven't even talked, Tony, about the bedded down balls that keep happening for him. That's the reason I said Scott Turner has to be able to roll him out a little bit more, because as Solomon said at the game, another Doug Flutie.
You look at it and you have to start doing, and that's what I said, coaching is all part of it. And I happen to be with Ray as well as Hogg in New England. And one thing we do know, they knew how to coach. We had things that always would stop us, but it seems though the league nowadays, and Hogg, you being a Hall of Famer, and you look around and just like you said, you may not look at the games now, but you've been looking at them in the prior weeks. And it just seems as though the coaching is really lacking as much or even more than the talent of the players.
Well, I've always said in most cases, and in a lot of cases, the coaches that are trying to coach the players have never even reached the level that the players have reached. There's not a lot of ex-pros coaching. Ray was lucky to get in there and do it. Joe Green was lucky to get in there and be able to coach. And they taught those guys, all the things that they had learned. And a player, there's two, you can teach fundamentals, but what they don't teach are the nuances. Jim Ringo, I was very fortunate to get Jim Ringo as my coach. And that was after about 5 years. I'd had Red Miller, who was a good coach, but when I got Ringo, who was a great player, my game went to a whole new level because he showed me things that only a guy on the field would know. And then I took what he taught me, and like you and Ray and everybody else knows, Alman, that you've got to you take what you learn, you have to adapt it to your body, and then you create it for your own game. You can't do what other people do. You learn from what they do, but you have to adopt it and adapt it to your body. Does that make sense to you guys? You know what
Exactly. You got to do what you can do. It's like it's sometimes when you have big, tall players, and then you have other players. Like I can tell you, I spoke on Ray Hamilton, and we joke a lot, but when I talk about being a player, the young man was a player. And the thing about it, the people think it's magnificent that he played nose guard, had 99 tackles 1 year by himself from the nose guard position after being double teamed, and was really a good passer. You do not see that anymore. We're waiting for Joe Green. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about this Washington team, but we're going to put them to bed because we want to talk about players around the league. We're going to talk about other things, and we always have to go back to the receiver. So when we come back, we got to go to the franchise. We'll be back in a moment. Welcome back to the Hall of Fame show. We're talking to a Hall of Fame, offensive lineman. We're waiting for a defensive lineman. But one thing we have to do is talk about the individuals on the Washington team, but maybe in the league. The difference between players now. And as I said, Ray Hamilton, not only was he a great player for 9 years, you coached in the league for 27 years, Ray. Tell me the big difference you see in the position that you coach as well as other positions.
Yeah, I just wanted to hit on what Hogg said earlier about offensive linemen. I do watch the games. I like watching the games. And the rules have changed so much now. It's not like when John and Leon and Art said, offensive linemen now do not move their feet at all. I was just watching KC last night a couple of times. They had 4th and 1. They didn't even fire off the ball. They're so involved now with catching and holding that's the main thing that they do, which has really stymied their foot movement. So they don't move their feet at all. It's not as simple as that. As far as what was the other question that you asked me about, Tony?
I was talking about the difference in the linemen now. And one thing, and I didn't ask you this, but it came into my mind. It seems as though all the players are not conditioned the way we were when we was having 6 weeks, 2 days, or when we was hitting in practice. If we didn't run the ball well that week, we had a scrimmage. They only have a certain amount of days. And I'm asking you and Hogg and Gary this because we all went through the 6 weeks of training camp, the 2 days and everything. It seems as though now the players are a little bit softer because they don't work them as hard. Anyone can answer that. Talk to me.
A lot softer than what we were, without a doubt. Remember, Hogg, we had 2 days that we didn't even know what day it was. It did the same thing all the time, every day. You know, whether it was Wednesday or Sunday, we went 2 days forever. But the other question you guys talked about earlier was about coaching in the league, and John mentioned that a lot of these guys have never even coached in the league. Well, the second part of that is that the league now is hiring all these young guys, and these young guys don't know shit. They want to be they want to be players' fans and stuff like that. Some of these guys are scared to correct the players. And on the field, just like John was saying, like Hogg was saying, you can see on the field. You know, if you messed up, back in our time, as a coach probably met you halfway coming off the field and grabbed you by the jersey. These guys now, all these young guys, they don't know shit, and they want to be your pal. They're scared to correct these guys. That's a big problem right there. You just see so many fundamental mistakes that are easy to correct that these guys can't fix them.
You got
and
a little
Ray, you
fired
sounded
up.
like Gary Clark, but I got a question for you because I was thinking about Gary when you were talking. But going back to the offensive line and the batted balls that continuously happen for Taylor Heineke, since you coached, how would you coach as far as that situation and helping him out a little bit? Because they said that pretty much for this Washington team, teams know what they're going to do offensively. So how would you coach that moving forward in helping him with that situation?
Well, first, from a defensive point of view, if you got an undersized offense, you got an undersized quarterback like Drew Brees, people like that, you always want to push the pocket if you can, unless you got Hogg in front of you, you can't push it. But you want to push the pocket, and once you decide that you can't get much farther, and he's going to throw the ball, then you stop and get your hands up and bat those balls down. The way to prevent that is he can move. So you put the guy on the move. More boots, more rollouts, things like that, moving around in the pocket.
But you know what, G-Man, you know it, and one thing we got to say in this, we talk about this team as we talk around the league, it seems as though some of the quarterbacks are losing their steam, but at the same time, it seems like there's so many good wide receivers, not only on the Washington team, but in the league now, G. Have you seen, is this a new thing that's happening, or are these guys just different or what?
Well, I mean, it's a passing league now, so of course your receivers are going to adapt to getting the ball thrown to them the majority of the time now. It really is a passing league for all teams. You know, they pretty much took the San Francisco model and they've abbreviated it and put their own spin on it a little bit. You know, so it's good for a receiver. If you're a receiver in this league and you're the guy on the team, you go get a lot of balls thrown your way. But it's always going to come down to your offensive line being able to protect your quarterback, because we're only as good as the offensive line on offense. It's really down. You can't run the ball if the offensive line doesn't block. You can't pass the ball if the offensive line doesn't block. That's why those guys, the league finally figured out you got to pay those guys the right amount of money, because they are key to having teams win football games.
Well, the Commanders are in trouble.
I like that, Hogg. And you know what, Hogg? You know that as well as yourself. And you tell me what do you see as a difference? I know you said the coaching and everything, but one thing about it, I remember you guys when you was up there with Big Leon and Sam Adams and Doc and all the people, you guys seem to always want to orchestrate your steps to be together, and you want to come off and each other know to play. It seems as though now the offensive linemen of the day, they have no idea about that kind of situation.
Well, I'm going to add another thing to what Ray said about rule changes. I was talking to Ray Perkins several years back, and I was talking to myself, and I said, it seems like sweeps and like the old flow 36 that we ran, and the flow 38s and the 39s and the traps. And I'm saying, it seems like they've disappeared from football. And Ray Perkins looked at me and says, well, John, you don't have enough time to install a running game anymore, because rules have made it to where you can only practice so much of the time. So you can't really install a complete running game. Because as you know, I mean, right now these guys have maybe 2 or 3 different pass blocking rules, or 4 maybe. But that's all they have. And then receiver routes, you maybe have 12 on the passing tree. You know, you have maybe 12 routes, so you can install a lot of passing. And every guy on the receiving end, they all run the same type patterns in one way or another. So it's easy people don't understand this. It's easier to put in a passing game on offense than it is a running game, because running game takes a lot of practice, a lot of timing. So, the rule changes there have hurt it too, to my knowledge. The other thing that I wanted to comment on was you asked about how to keep a guy's hands down on defensive line. It's real simple. You punch him in the gut. That's what you do. And that's the way we did it. And if you tried to punch him in the gut, he'd tend to want to, keep those hands down. But I think, you're right. And Tony, about the steps, and one of the best compliments I ever got. Leon came down to Albertville one time and helped me put on a football camp, and we were showing people our different, our blocks and what we did. And I don't know if you remember, what was his name? Played linebacker in Seattle, but he was from Annis Ken something. But anyway, he looked at us and says, "Y'all look like a chorus line." And that's the way it was. We did work on our steps all the time because we had to be coordinated in everything we did. And we depended on each other. I depended on Leon, and Leon depended on me.
Yeah, you guys can move your feet, Hog. You guys nowadays can move their feet.
But see, that's what I was seeing, and that's what I was gonna say too. It's funny that Ray said that once they would push the offense into the push the offensive lineman back into the pocket. With his height, he couldn't see over. I'm gonna be honest. One of the defensive linemen that blocked this shot like it was offense basketball, but one of the defensive linemen that batted the football down was maybe like 6'1". So I think his height plays a lot into some of his disadvantages too, where I do notice the Kyler Murphys and the Tuas, they're about his same frame, but they know how to even set up in shotguns where they can actually see a lot more. Once he gets sunk into the pocket, then it's like basically a backyard scramble and he's throwing it and just trying to make something happen. But that's what I was able to see. And it's funny that John said that the offensive linemen, they're not smooth. And I'm going to be honest, I remember watching John, Leon, and just different, even Bostic for the Washington team. They were physical, but they were smooth with it, and they moved in a unity, and everything was just pure and together.
And Donna, as you look at this, and one thing about it, we talk about what created and why they lost that game on Sunday, and it comes down to the mistakes that were made in the fourth quarter. Now, we've talked about this year in and year out, and we're talking about it again this year. Do you think their conditioning is still suspect?
See, Tony, I don't think it's so much of the conditioning because I'm out there during the week and they're going through, I'm not there for the whole practice. They only allow us to see so much. But these guys are definitely in shape. Maybe not all the linemen, but I think that for the most part, you look at the defensive side, those guys are in shape because Deron Payne and John Allen, they are balling. I mean, they were pushing. John Allen was double teamed in that game, and he just threw those guys out the way. Even Deron Payne is having an all-pro year. Offensive line, I think that talent-wise, they just don't have the talent there on the offensive side of the ball. And I think that it's not the conditioning thing, Tony. It comes back to me as far as coaching and putting these guys in position. But I want to talk about the quarterback situation right now. Carson Wentz is due back in a couple of weeks from being out with that thumb injury. And in the NFL right now, the quarterback is those mobile quarterbacks that can move around. Being that Washington's offensive line is what it is, do you make that switch? Gary, since I know you like the quarterback, what would you do in that situation, knowing that the offensive line is what it is?
Well, hold your answer on that, G, until after this break, because we got to pay the bill for having Hog and Ray on here. And I forgot to tell you and Solomon and Donna, y'all not getting paid this week. When we come back, we will talk about the quarterbacks. We'll be back in a moment.
Before we went out, I asked Gary about the quarterback situation with Carson Wentz probably coming back in 2 weeks. And when you look around the NFL, Gary, the quarterback is the mobile quarterback. And if you don't have a solid quarterback, and especially right now with this Washington team, it's not going to get it done. So I want you to answer that. And also, Antonio Gibson is back there as the kickoff returner. Now that he practiced that during the training camp, I like to see him as the punt returner too, but he's too valuable. What is your take on Antonio Gibson, who had that 45-yard run to open up the second half of the game, and then the quarterback situation moving forward?
Well, in terms of the quarterback situation, I mean, I think you stick with Heineke right now. Obviously, a lot of things could happen in the next 2 to 3 weeks. If they lose games in the next 2 to 3 weeks, then you have a window to bring Wentz back. But if he wins the next 2 games, you're not going to mess with the chemistry of the team. That'd be silly to put in another quarterback when you're winning with the existing quarterback. I mean, why mess with the chemistry that the team has right now? In terms of having a guy come in and return kicks, it's one of your main guys. I mean, of course. I mean, if it's going to allow you to win the football game, to proceeding, getting the game done. Of course, we did it with Darrell Green from time to time. If we needed a big play, we put Darrell in. It didn't matter. It didn't matter that he was one of the best players on our team. But if we needed a shot in the arm, we put Darrell in to be our return guy, whether it be a punt return or a kickoff return. We'd have Darrell back there to try to give us a shot in the arm if we needed that. So I think it's a good step that they're doing by having Gibson return kicks. And of course, if you want to return punts as well, I just don't know if he's a former receiver, so he should probably be able to return punts great too.
And that's very important. But one thing now is we start to look at the NFC, you look at the different teams around the league, you look what's formulated and what teams will be there and what quality does it take. As I look around the league right now, it's been some big changes. But one thing that was said prior in this conversation is the quarterbacks now are changing. Those quarterbacks that stand there like a statue, it's not working anymore. I would not put Wentz back in there. We knew when we put Heineke in there that he was going to do a 50-50, 50 good, 50 bad. But we are not getting even 25-75 with Wentz. What we got to do is, Gary said it best, is go with who's took us there now. He's doing it very well. He's not the greatest. He's limited, but at the same time, he's winning games. When I look at that, I think it's important. But as we look around the league, guys, and we look at this Washington team, even at the stage where they at 4-5, still have an opportunity for the playoffs. Will there be different teams in the playoffs? Is the team like the Philadelphia for real? Now, did 49ers make a trade that may make them the odds-on favorites? When you look at the AFC part, I don't know if you have one right now. It doesn't seem to be anybody. You look at the team. I thought Buffalo Bills was going to be the team of the future. I thought they would be the team would be like New England was at represent. But right now it seems as though they're fading. What's happening in the league? Is it really only about 7 or 8, as people have been saying, good teams in the league right now?
Tony, Buffalo is not fading. They lost that one game to the Jets.
Oh, they are fading. They just like your picks. Wrong every week.
They played. Josh Allen had a rough week. I mean, a rough game and everything. But the Jets are for real, Tony. So you can't even laugh at them. And you didn't even mention a Seattle team that's coming on right now. So I think but I want to ask about the Rams. The Rams is the defending Super Bowl champs. They look like that they just tanked this season. I mean, what's gone wrong? What's gone wrong with the Rams?
Like what Gary said earlier, it's a passing league. The Rams only have one guy that can get open. That's Cooper Kupp. They lost 3 offensive linemen, so they're not going to win.
You like Seattle?
Aaron Rodgers has no one that can get open. The guy in Chicago has no one that can get open. If you don't have any receivers, you can forget it.
What do you think about the quarterback for Chicago running for 178 yards? I mean, that's unreal. Now, it's good to know that, but we had a quarterback there, Bobby Douglas. He ran for 1,000 yards and threw for 200. I mean, and for the year. At the same time, you can't win like that. But if we look around, is the league changing now? As Gary said, it's going to a passing league now. Running is important, but when I look at this Washington team, that is the one element. If they had a running game, they would be a very good team right now.
Washington has 2 backup quarterbacks. They don't have a guy that you can depend on to make plays when you need to make plays. I mean, Heineke's okay, and the other guy, Wentz, is okay, but they're both backups. They're not going to take you there.
The Washington Commanders do have a running game. They would have a running game if they ran the ball because Robinson is pretty solid, and Antonio Gibson has played well. J.D. McKissick is out with an injury right now. But you can't say that this Washington team does not have a running game. That, to me, is the strength as far as the offensive line, as far as blocking. But they can't run the ball. Scott Turner don't put the ball or put plays there, Tony, for them to run the ball.
You need to take the blinders off. They ain't running the ball. Running the ball is the most important thing
You ought
in
to
the
get these
game.
glasses,
They have
Tony.
to establish the run to make the defensive linemen stop pass rushing. John, tell me, do you not think running is the most important thing to stop? When you guys wanted to intimidate a team for us, what did you do? You ran at them. And when y'all did not run for over 100 yards a game, Fairbanks had us out there scrimmaging. Am I right?
You're right. You're absolutely right. The run sets it up for an offensive lineman because there's nothing like, and this is another rule change, but there's nothing like to slow a defensive lineman down like coming off the ball and popping him right in the mouth with your headgear, and even on third and 3 or 5, we used to have a lot of quick passes that would come off and you'd get rid of the ball at 1.5, 1.8, something like that. Well, even on that play, at times you could come off the ball and pop them, and or you could take a short set, and when he came into you again, you could kind of do that. You kind of pop them and get them up under the chin again, and that slows the defensive lineman down. He steps back, he makes his moves, maybe another foot or two away from you, and that gives you time when the real pass rush times, when it's really time, maybe to think about it. Is he going to come off and really hit me, or is he just going to back up and take it? So having that ability for an offensive lineman to come off and smack somebody in the mouth, it helps. That's a key ingredient. And that's just part of it.
It is. Big fella. Now, you've been watching the game for a long time because you was forced to do that. But at the same time, you have to take a look at what he said 2 things. Hit him in the mouth, hit him in the stomach. Do you think these guys, they have that kind of intensity? That's the way you do it, whatever it takes to get your job done. Do you see that among these players on this team as well as around the league now?
Well, the league has changed a lot, like the warriors that we have on the platform as we speak. Even people like Gary that would get people fired up. I mean, you got to look at a receiver will get into a lineman's face back in the day, where now it's just more, and I'm going to just be honest, it's a sensitive league. So you have people more scared to offend each other now, or you don't want this guy to take this the wrong way and disappear for the rest of the game. So I don't think the league has changed a lot, just like we were talking about with the old NBA back in the day with the Pistons and Jordan, when he would have to go through the bad boys, where I know LeBron's your favorite player, Dad, but he doesn't have to go through nowhere near what Jordan had to go through. Neither do these football players. They didn't have to go through the training camps you guys have to go through. They didn't have to worry about a guy like John Hanna hitting him in the mouth. They just have to go out there, win or lose, and just do their jobs, as I hear. So it's changed a lot across the board.
But Tony, you said about smacking teams in the mouth and whatever, it still exists. Let's talk about the Philadelphia Eagles, who this Washington Commanders played next. Their offensive line is all of that. I mean, they are solid on the offensive line. Their defensive line is nasty also. They've got a great running game. They've got the receivers, and they've got that savvy quarterback in Hurts. So when you look at a complete team around the NFL, it is the Philadelphia Eagles. And we know what this team did to the Commanders the first time, and you're playing up in Philly this time. I mean, that is the team that you look at to be nasty, like John said. It's the Philadelphia Eagles right now.
But you look at him, and you're exactly right on that, Donna. You must have got a cheat sheet from one of the guys, because I know you don't know that.
It wasn't you, Tony. I didn't get it from you.
But at the same time, you're right about Philadelphia. They're a dangerous team. I like the way Hurt plays. I like the way their offense and defensive line play. They are a complete team. But as you said, the one thing about them, they're physical, and they adapt to whomever they're playing. This is what this Washington team is starting to do better. And, we can't keep this backing away from them. Yes, they've lost some games we thought they should have won, but at the same time, we are seeing marked improvement. Yes, as Ray said, we don't have the starting quarterback that we need right now, but at the same time, we making do. That's why I go back to the aspect, and we could talk about it later, because in the next segment, we got to talk about what teams we think are going to go to the Super Bowl. One thing about it, I disagree. I'm with John Hanna. You have to run the ball. And I'm like a summer rose. I need the sun and the rain, not just passing. We'll be back in a minute.
So now we are doing preacher curl, and I get this all the time. Why do they call that preacher curl? Because this looks like you going to mass and you praying. Some folks might be praying because they tired of doing this. They want to finish, get it over with. Please, God, let me finish this. Yeah, you're gonna be coming up, down, slow. Up, always want that pause. Down, slow. Don't want this. It's not good for your joints. Up, control it. That way we recruit more muscle fibers when we go slow. If we got 4 sets, let's start off heavy, then we just layer it down. You just stay and you doing that like it's a straw.
I might need a little heavier.
Like it's a straw.
Because that was a little low.
Yeah, I know what I'm saying. You can go, just challenge yourself.
Challenge yourself. Don't cheat yourself.
You don't want nothing to be easy. Up and down. Up and down. There you go. There you go. You don't buy as a girl. That's Popeye right there, yeah.
This is one time you want to be Popeye the Cellar Man, right?
Exactly.
And not olive oil.
You ain't kidding. And stop.
And Tony, you know what? Ricky is trying to get us all in shape, but we're still waiting on you, Tony. Still
You
waiting
know why I
on you.
call them preacher curls? Because I'm praying I can do them. I tell you what, that isolates you. That's really a good type of exercise to do. And for all you fans out there, we're giving you each and every week, but we always tell you, talk to your doctors first. Make sure you're able to do this. Do not try to overdo it. You're not trying to prove anything to anybody but yourself. We're doing this because we want you to be healthy in the future. Speaking of being healthy, as you look around the league, guys, there's a lot of teams now. There's nobody you can say that, oh, they'll be in the Super Bowl. But what I'm going to do before we start talking about this Super Bowl, I'm going to take Big John Hanna. He's down in the line, Alabama. Everybody's scared of him. He's whooping head. He's getting ready. He got one game to get to the Super Bowl. He got to go against Big Joe. And Big Joe ain't here right now, so I had to speak to him. What would you do, or what did you do whenever you played Pittsburgh and you knew that vulnerable defensive line they got in, you may have to go against a Joe Green? What would you think, Johnny? Since you're a Hall of Famer, I want to know what your thought process is. Maybe it helps some of these young individuals. What would you think? Would you all night think about what you're going to do? Would you have a game plan or what?
First of all, you got to remember, you let a sleeping dog lie.
right. Don't get him upset.
That's number one. You don't get him mad. I was starting to think about that this afternoon after we talked, and back then it was Bud Carson was coaching them, and he's the first guy that you started using that offset defensive line, and he'd put Joe in the gap between the guard and tackle, or he had put it in between the center guard gap. So, in reality, the hard part about blocking Joe on the running game, especially, or even Ernie Holmes, who was a pretty good load himself, he's going to get double teamed. No matter what on running game, you're going to double team him. And then whichever way he goes, the other guy basically slides off and goes after Lambert or one of the linebackers. So, the running game was a totally different thing, because you're not going to come off and really hit him all by yourself. You're going to get a help from somebody else. And then when he puts his weight on one guy, you've got to feel it and go to the linebacker. But you got to get push on him. So one of the big things, I think, especially with Joe or with Ernie, is try to get under him. You get that leverage, and so you can get them off the ball and back them up into the linebacker, so the linebacker can't come up into the line of scrimmage and make the tackle on there. You can at least get 3 or 4 yards every time you run the ball. On pass protection, the hard part, when I looked at Joe Green and tried to imagine myself blocking him, what would I do? Well, I'd probably throw a lot of junk at him. But what I mean by that, I might set short, I might set a little deeper, because what I want to do is not let him know how many steps and get a consistent read on the number of steps before he makes contact with me. So he can it makes him have to adjust his moves. If you understand what
We got a little freeze there, but now
what I'm trying to say. He doesn't real quick. He just want to back off and then move it. So you play with him that way. But the one thing you always knew about Joe Green, you could not take a play off. And there were, even when we played, there weren't a lot of guys that you could say he's going to come every play. I mean, there were a lot of them. Don't get me wrong, but there wasn't. There were guys that you knew weren't going to come every play, but Joe was one of those guys that did. So that's the way I guess I would kind of look at it. And the other thing is he had the power and the strength to run, but he also had the speed to get around you. So you had to kind of moderate, when you took that set, like if I played Sugar Bear, I'm going to try to take as light a stance as I can, because I know his gift is quickness. So I've got to really be light on my feet to be able to try to stop him if I could. Whereas with when I played in front of a lot of guys, I'd sit really strong and kind of plant a little bit more. Because I knew they were low and the load. So I wanted to, get my brace, and, I know they're going to bull me most of the time, and I'm going to try to stop that bull rush, which leads me to I want to ask Ray a question, because he said something a little while ago, and I want to ask this. When offensive linemen are taught now to set the pocket, we were always taught that the guards in the center had to stop penetration. We had to keep the guy 2 to 3 yards off. That's as deep as he could go. And then the tackles would take the loops. But the way I look at it now, a lot of the guards are doing the same thing that tackles do and running them around instead of maintaining that shortness at the middle three guys and letting the tackles run around. Is that being taught?
Yeah, that's being taught quite a bit, and it's all centered around them being able to get there. See, back when we played so much, the hands weren't quite what they are now. They're taught now to set short and try to grab defensive linemen. And of course, as coaches, we try to get our defensive linemen to swipe their hands away and stay on the edge. But if offensive linemen, they feel that if they can just hold you for 2 seconds, 2.1 seconds, the ball's going to be gone, and that's it. But they're taught not to move their feet, to set short and grab hold.
I know a lot of you fans probably saying, well, why are they saying that? We want you to know what real coaching is about, what real players are doing, because we do not see these players, even though they're getting paid a lot more money than we did. Listen to what these guys are saying. This is what make Hall of Famers. This is what make people be able to play in the league for 27 years. You look at what they studied their craft, and it's one thing I don't see. And Donna, I've talked to you about this a lot. I don't see them having a game plan. Now, we only got a minute, but you tell me, you know enough now to look at the defensive linemen don't have a game plan. The offensive linemen don't have a game plan. It seems like some of the coaches don't.
Well, Tony, you just said the magical words. It's not so much of the players, but although Gary said that the players go out and play coach's coach. But if the coaches are not putting together a solid game plan, then it spills over to the players. So I think you answered your own question as far as it starts with coaching.
Well, I knew you probably wouldn't be able to answer it, so I wanted to take you. I wanted to answer it for you, but we're going to take a break now. No, we haven't forgot about the other part of the league, but I want you guys, when you have a Hall of Famer on your show, you try to find out their thought process. You try to listen, just like you said with the Ricky Irvin piece. I want individuals to know that when you can do these things yourself. Donna can do them. You can do them. So everything we do on this show, we're trying to give out information. So when we come back, we're going to try to tell you what teams we think be there in the end. Back in a second.
Tony McGee's Pro Football Plus Speakers Bureau offers you various opportunities to connect with former and current players along with Tony and the crew. For more information, go to redmagplus.com Speakers Bureau. Well, you see the picks up on the screen and you see who's winning right now. So quickly, we're 10 games into the season. Who do you all like right now? Hey, John, I'd start with you and Ray.
Like I say, I haven't watched enough pro games to even vote, but I'll tell you who I like in college. I like Georgia.
Okay.
Hey, Ray, who do you like in the NFL right now?
I like Philly.
And Tony, I'm going to let you have the last word with Solomon and Gary. Y'all jump in right quick. Who do you like?
Hey, who do you like, G?
I don't care.
They don't care.
Big Zol.
I still like the Bills, but I'm like, I'm still a Washington fan, so it still hurts me to have to pick another team to be in the Super Bowl. But I'll still look at the Bills.
Donna?
Tony, you got the last word.
Okay, as you take a look at it, I look at the 49ers. They picked up, if they can stay healthy, they'll be the team to beat. Speaking of the team to beat, we got a team coming in next week. The second half of our All-Stars will be in next week. I'm not going to tell you who, but it's some people you want to see. But anytime you get to see a Hall of Famer, John, thanks for coming on. And Gary, you should be one. You guys enjoyed it. What we do, we try to give you enjoyment each and every week. We never say goodbye. We say in the minute.
Solution today. I present to you what I present to me. Why don't you say it along with me? Say it along with me. If you're feeling what I'm feeling, then you know what I mean. Keep doing the same thing, you're gonna get the same result. So amazing, so amazing. I'm singing about you. So amazing, so amazing. So amazing. You are amazing. You are amazing. You are so amazing, so amazing. Yes, you are.